3 more grain ships have left Ukrainian ports and are headed to Turkey for inspection. So far, it looks like the deal to allow the safe export of grain, which has been stuck in Ukraine since the beginning of Russia's invasion, is working. Turkey's President Recep Erdogan helped broker that deal. And today, for the second time in less than 3 weeks, Erdogan is meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. And those meetings are raising concerns that Putin could strengthen economic ties with Turkey, which is a member of NATO. I want to bring in Jared Malsin to discuss this. He is a Middle East correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. Jared, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
What agenda items are expected to come up during this meeting?
Well, you mentioned the grain deal. That's going to be high on the agenda. This deal that was signed a few weeks ago here in Istanbul between Turkey, Russia, the United Nations, and Ukraine to resume exports of grain through the Black Sea. There's about 16 million tons of corn, wheat, and other food products that are currently trapped in Ukraine as a result of Russia's invasion. And what the UN and Turkey have been trying to do is get ships out of the ports in Odessa, get them moving again so that that can bring down food prices around the world. There have been 4 ships that have already gone, including the 3 that left this morning. And right now, we're in this moment of waiting to find out whether they can really operationalize that agreement and bring Ukraine up from the roughly 2 million tons of grain it's exporting per month right now to about 5 million. These 2 leaders also have a whole list of other topics to address. This is a pair of countries that are both partners and rivals, really, in a whole range of conflicts, not only in Ukraine, but also in Syria, Libya, and a number of other places. And we can expect them to address those too.
Erdogan has managed to successfully position himself as a sort of conduit between Russia and the international community following the country's invasion of Ukraine. He was able to assist in getting Ukrainian grain ships out of port, easing a world hunger crisis. How was he able to do that?
That's right. Well, what Turkish officials will tell you if you ask them about this is that they don't want to freeze out Russia. They are the only country in NATO that hasn't imposed sanctions on Russia. And what they're saying is, if we don't talk to the Russians, no one will. They want to negotiate a peace in Ukraine. They want to broker negotiations. They've hosted 2 rounds of peace talks here in Turkey between Russia and Ukraine that ended unsuccessfully. But this grain deal, they're hoping, can be kind of a foundation that would lead to a broader agreement between these 2. And, you know, the economic ties between the 2 of them, that's also an important piece of this that you mentioned. These are both countries with vulnerable economies, partly as a result of the war, and they need each other to continue trading.
Jared, how are other NATO countries reacting to these meetings? Does more tension arise considering Finland and Sweden are looking for NATO membership?
Right. So the rest of NATO, I think a lot of officials in Europe and in the U.S. haven't been happy with Turkey because of their reluctance to join the West in having a strong coalition against Russia, for example, in terms of sanctions. You also mentioned Finland and Sweden, where Turkey initially vetoed their joining NATO, which is a part of this broader Western response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which puts the whole of Europe's security at risk. Turkey dropped that veto under an agreement in June, but now Erdogan is threatening again to reimpose that veto if Sweden and Finland don't meet Turkey's demand in terms of cutting ties with Kurdish militant groups. That's the issue that the Turks have been bringing up. But in general, there's been a lot of tension. Western officials, including in Washington, they've had a lot of praise for Turkey for some of the constructive things they've done. For example, negotiating this grain agreement, which is obviously badly needed to address world hunger. But at the same time, I think privately, there has been a lot of concern about really asking whether Turkey is really with the West or not in terms of sanctions not being imposed, Russian oligarchs' assets not being seized, Russian yachts showing up in Turkish ports, and Russian money flowing into Turkey.
Time will tell. Jared Malsin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.